Mike McCarthy lied to the Dallas Cowboys while interviewing for the head coaching position. And we know this because he admitted it during his introductory press conference. So I'm going to play a clip from the press conference and then we'll pick up with commentary.
Studies. So it was more situation specific, but that, I haven't just, like I said, early in the season, I watched a lot of game tape.
Mike, you mentioned the year off, and you spent a lot of time with a bunch of other coaches that you hired or worked with, and you said you analyzed every play or watched every play of the entire 2019 season. What is it that you learned from that experience that you think will benefit you most here?
Well, I mean, I need to confess. I mean, I told Jerry I watched every play of the 2019 season, but I wanted the job. So I haven't watched every play of the season, but it was just, I mean, you do what you got to do, right? But it was more about tracking trends and seeing what people were doing and a big part of it too when the study is watching players. Just watching some of these new offenses and really there's a couple guys on defense that we were able to study. But we spent a lot of time in cut-ups and those types of things.
All right, I let that play for several seconds after he had admitted to the lie because I wanted to just watch Jerry Jones and try to judge his reaction. So to me, it looks like Jerry Jones is bothered by this. His son, Stephen Jones, is the one laughing, obviously unbothered, but Stephen Jones doesn't have the same experience as Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones is someone who knows how damaging starting with a lie can be. So I don't know what Jerry Jones' position on this was, but my position is that you can't start with someone that's going to lie to you. But this is a very difficult position because this is unfolding live during an introductory press conference, which makes this especially difficult. At this moment, what do you do? And Jerry Jones is likely processing several thoughts. Now, maybe it didn't bother him. Maybe he thought it was a joke. He did smile while hearing it, but he wasn't laughing to the same extent that Stephen Jones was. And this really is something that is quite serious, even though it's said in jest, even though it was presented as a joke, it was also presented as genuine and the truth. And so the truth is that Mike McCarthy lied during a job interview, and the lie wasn't something that was insignificant. This is material. This is material information. It may have not been what the deciding factor was. And in fact, it likely wasn't. It likely was a combination of things, like a collection of things. But this is something that would lead to the next step. This is something that may have helped Mike McCarthy turn the corner, that may have helped Jerry Jones make his decision. Because as an owner of the football team, he's likely thinking if this guy's this committed to have watched every single play of the previous season, then he knows this football team inside and out and can help us make the best decisions going forward. And now Jerry Jones is finding out live that this was a lie. And so he's been deceived and this is a problem and it's presented as a joke and it went on and Mike McCarthy had a long tenure, but it's something that's actually quite significant. So I wanted to cover this and let's now go through some of the thoughts that may have been going through Jerry Jones's mind. Some of the thoughts I certainly would have had. So with Mike McCarthy admitting that he's lying, this sets a horrible precedent going forward. And Mike McCarthy, who is in this introductory press conference, now moving forward in a leadership position, has set a really bad precedent, not only for himself, but more importantly, for the hiring person, Jerry Jones. And so, what am I talking about here? Well, we have a massive engagement based in part on a lie, right? So, this is one of those things where he shouldn't have lied at all. But then going ahead and admitting it during the press conference, this just creates a very, very difficult situation all around. And so for Jerry Jones, part of this bad precedence is that it sends a message that lying on some level is accepted. And so when people are processing this, like on the surface, it may just be that this was a joke, it was funny, but what happens is underneath that, right? The subliminal part is that lying is okay because we just heard Mike McCarthy admit to it. There wasn't the joke wasn't that it wasn't true or that he was being sarcastic. The joke was that he was saying he was just admitting to lying laughingly. But for Jerry Jones, of course, this is very difficult, right? Because if he has to in this moment, he can do a few things, and he chose one option, which was to say nothing. But he could have afterwards decided this engagement is over. I'm not going to continue forward based on a lie. That is a really hard line to set for many different reasons. And so one of those reasons is because it would result in disorder and chaos. Of course, there's going to if he decides that Mike McCarthy is now fired one day in during the first day on the job, then the media coverage is going to be nonstop with this. It's never going to stop being a story for the entire season. And then the organization then has to figure out what's next. They've invested all of this time and all of these resources, all of this time into hiring Mike McCarthy. And so there are so many collateral effects to this that Jerry Jones is trying to process, likely trying to process. This also, as I was getting at, undoes significant hiring, coordinating, and planning efforts on the part of the Cowboys. And then other desirable coaching candidates that the Cowboys could have looked at or could have pursued if they had decided that Mike McCarthy wasn't the right person. They're no longer available, or there are at least it's less likely that candidates would be available. And so on this next point I wanted to bring up, he said it in jest, but it was obviously true. So that's what happens a lot of times with jokes is people say stuff, it's accepted more readily because they're laughing while they're saying it, or they're intending it as a joke. But if it's true, then the truth still remains. And in here that was the case. And then, so we have this last point where Jerry Jones could have been thinking, I probably would have hired him otherwise. And by the way, in the clip, which I will link to in the description, Jerry Jones does appear to be pensive. Now, this is obviously me reading into the clip, and part of this is with some bias because I know what unfolded, but it does look like Jerry is contemplating something. But of course, during other parts of the interview, Jerry looks the exact same. So, me just reading into the situation, Jerry Jones may have been thinking, I probably would have hired him otherwise because having to watch every single play of a season is definitely not a prerequisite. As I said, it's more something that would weigh in a candidate's favor rather than something that would be an absolute necessity. So Jerry Jones probably thinking, well, okay, he said it was a joke. I probably would have hired him otherwise, and then maybe he's looking to brush past this. But would I have hired him now, knowing that he would have lied to me? So there are second order effects here. Now Jerry knows that Mike McCarthy lied to him during the interview. So was there anything else that he deceived him with? And he also, the other part of this is that Mike McCarthy just put Jerry Jones in a difficult position. Um, and there's no desirable outcome here. Jerry Jones did not hire Mike McCarthy because he wanted to turn around and fire him. He also didn't hire Mike McCarthy to put him in a very bad position during his introductory press conference. And then also, Mike McCarthy waited into the press conference. So Mike McCarthy didn't take Jerry Jones to the side and let him know, like, hey, like this, I said this during the interview, it wasn't true. That didn't happen. He said this while the introductory press conference was happening, which of course was a major media event. It was covered. There were, it looked like dozens of people, if not over 100 people in attendance. This was quite significant. I don't know. It may have even been streamed live. I don't know. But this was one of those situations where Jerry Jones had to process live. And of course, he could have come after the fact, let the press conference go on, give himself some time to think about the options, and he may have done this and arrived at the conclusion that it was better just to continue forward and let it go as a joke. But this is something that sets a horrible precedent, and it did put Jerry Jones seemingly in a bad position. Now, maybe Jerry Jones didn't feel like it, but I would bet that it did. That's me reading into this, but I think as Jerry Jones, someone with the experience he has, having dealt with people, having gone through relationships, Jerry Jones knows how important it is to start off with a good foundation, right? And that's what he was trying to do. This press conference was meant to be a good thing moving forward. We're going to try to get back on in winning, right? The Cowboys are going to try to get back to winning playoff games and hopefully a championship. But now I have this head coach that right as everything's about to start, he throws in this lie and puts me in a really bad position. So I have to think that Jerry Jones disliked that. I'm going to link to the introductory press conference in the description.